Kicking off the list at number 10. Thor Down Under. In Thor issue 180, we find the god of thunder gets sentenced down under. Well, I mean, it looks like Loki, but upon arrival to the underworld, Mephisto comes in contact with him, and it is in fact Thor stuck in Loki's body. Classic trickster move right there. And up on the real world, Loki was pretending to be Thor, using his power, of course, for evil. So when Mephisto comes in contact with Loki's shoulder, he feels pain that can only be caused by good. And upon closer look, he realizes it's actually Thor. And then when Sif and the Warriors 3 come to the rescue, they find Thor stuck in a block of ice. All thanks to Mephisto. And it doesn't look too comfortable either. I mean, a simple pair of demon handcuffs would have sufficed, but sure, you do you. And before we continue on to number 9, if you haven't already, can you guys go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, because it really does do wonders for our channel. Thank you so much for the support. Now back to some more devilish deeds. Number 9, Legacy of Doom. Seeing a loved one come back to life has to be pretty frightening of an experience, but when Mephisto is involved, it's just on a whole new level. In Iron Man Legacy of Doom, Dr. Doom travels back in time to trade Iron Man for a fragment of Excalibur. Not a bad deal if you ask me. The trade happened with the #1 person to make deals with, Mephisto. Then Mephisto just kicks back and enjoys watching Iron Man try and escape the fiery pits of hell. But he turned it up a notch, of course, when he took on the form of Howard Stark in this demonic giant suit. I like when Tony says, "You're no father of mine," right before, bam, a repulsor blast. That's cool. It's like some cool badass thing to say right before you attack someone. Classic Tony. Number 8, the first Ghost Rider. Long before the ages of Johnny Blaze, Mephisto had actually made the first Ghost Rider after striking up a deal with an early human who had been brutally attacked by a Wendigo. This is back in like caveman days. This dude's picking on everybody. So Mephisto appeared before him in the form of a snake, obviously, and then offered the man strength to avenge his people. All he had to do is guess the serpent's name. And boom, we have a deal. Then years later, that young man returns to get his revenge, but now this time, he looks a little bit different. This time, he's the spirit of vengeance. And his next fight with Wendigo now involved a mammoth spraying fire out of its trunk. So, you win that one. Now this sounds like a tale of revenge, but Mephisto getting involved meant that this mammoth had to get tossed off of a cliff in the process. And who knows, guys, this could have literally been the last mammoth. I mean, we're not sure. How can we be sure?
Number 7, Elliot Franklin. Okay, I don't like clowns. Maybe it's a bit of a ridiculous fear. I don't care. They just kind of freak me out. That's all right. But underneath the makeup, the wig, and that damn nose, there is a real human being in there. And they are usually a perfectly lovely human being too. Usually. Elliot Franklin grew up with his father inspiring him to be an incredibly successful clown, so he would want for nothing. But unfortunately, things didn't pan out too well, and Elliot had to turn to a life of crime just to get by, joining the circus of crime, and eventually becoming its leader, bringing him into conflict with Johnny Blaze in Ghost Rider Volume 2, Issue 73. What the Ghost Rider didn't know is that Elliot was actually a good guy at heart, and he was even trying to lead the circus into being caught. Unfortunately, no one told Johnny, and he used his hellfire on Elliot, making him relive his personal hell and reducing the clown to a weeping, bumbling, sad man, the guilt of which reverted Ghost Rider back into Johnny when he realized the truth. Number 6, use the penance stare on Doctor Strange. The penance stare takes all the pain and hurt an individual has inflicted on others with their sinful ways and inflicts it all back on that individual, usually leaving them a husk of their former selves. It's kind of terrifying. So it was kind of shocking that during an altercation between Johnny Blaze and Dr. Stephen Strange, the Ghost Rider used the ability on him. It is worth noting a few things here. 1, Ghost Rider believed Strange to be Lucifer, which he wasn't, kind of making this whole thing worse to do, honestly. And secondly, Johnny was almost fully possessed by Zarathos when it happened after suffering a massive attack from the Sorcerer Supreme. It was after the stare was performed and Strange was on the edge of life that Blaze realized this was not Lucifer. This is why you always double check someone is in fact a demon before you use one of their most powerful moves. Just a note for future reference. Number 5, brothers. Speaking Speaking of penance stares, let's look at the fun time when Johnny Blaze and Danny Ketch both penance stare each other one after another. Danny had been running around stealing the Ghost Rider powers from various Ghost Riders around the world to feed an addiction he had developed for said power. He did take the lives of many of these Ghost Riders. He's not a great person. So when Johnny confronted him, their battle was incredibly brutal and really cool to read, I'm not gonna lie. There was a point where Johnny causes a massive explosion that shakes the Himalayas. Now after this, Johnny went to show his brother the error of his ways by using Danny's penance stare move on him, which is when Johnny learned of all the things Ketch had done. I guess the stare works differently for riders, as Danny just got up and eventually did the exact same thing back to Johnny. Gotta love brotherly love. Number 4, Mojo World. When the Avengers are transported to Mojo World in Uncanny Avengers Annual number 1, Mojo tampers with Blaze's mind, making the Spirit of Vengeance believe it had created a child, which shut down Johnny Blaze's influence. Without Johnny keeping it in check, Ghost Rider will seek vengeance on all life, perceiving life itself to be a sin. Ghost Rider rides to an artificial moon and unleashes his penance stare upon Mojo World, causing the entire population, no matter what they've done, to feel the weight of their sins. Doctor Strange manages to shield the heroes from the penance stare, stating that they must exorcise the Spirit of Vengeance from Blaze, resetting the curse and tempering the spirit. The heroes then attack Ghost Rider. He incapacitates Thor. Satana attempts to exorcise him but is incapacitated before she could do so. Man-Thing attempts to consume Ghost Rider but is destroyed from the inside out, and with no other options left, Scarlet Witch confronts him. As Ghost Rider charges at her, Rogue grapples him, using her powers to pull the curse into herself.
Number 3, Mephisto and Hutch. In X-Men Unlimited issue 37, we find Ilyana Rasputina from an alternate Earth where she now has a son named Hutch. The thing about Hutch was he was born between dimensions, so now every dimension has equal claim on him, since he was technically part of them all. Okay. So Magic then decided to make a deal with Mephistos, and things, what do you know, they didn't end up going a positive direction. It's almost like he's the devil. The deal he came up with was that Hutch would get a body, but every mutant in all these dimensions bites the bullet, okay? So, great deal, man, awesome. I get a body, everyone else disappears, sweet. So the deal goes down, but then when Hutch discovers what the cost was, poor guy sacrifices himself and returns to having no body. You couldn't have come up with anything else, Devilman, really? Number 2, Brass Bishop. A long time ago, Bishop Benedicto de Vica Cibertes, aka Brass Bishop, so you don't butcher the name like I probably just did, he fell in love with a young lady named Beatrice, and he felt like she was too good and God just wouldn't allow it, so he turned to Mephistos. Okay, it went from 0 to 100 really quick. So Mephistos is like, okay, sell me your soul upon death and then I'll make it so that she's by your side always. Like, you can have this woman, your dream woman there, like that's it. You guys are gonna be together forever. She's gonna be right there with you, man. It's gonna be great. 10 out of 10 deal. Just sign right there. So they made the deal, but now she is a nun. So he felt like in reality, she was actually further away from his grasp than first intended. He's like, no, this is the opposite of love. I can't even get close to this woman. That's honestly a bold move, Mephistos, okay? I'll give you that. So Brass Bishop then made a suit that was designed so whoever was wearing it was able to keep their soul. So specific. But the suit required the blood of an innocent woman, so he turned to Beatrice to make sure that his soul was safe. What a wild thing. This is all wild. So Mephisto was waiting for his soul, and then he sent out a demon to go looking, but Brass Bishop took off his head, bam, sliced it off. Then he approached Mephistos and tried to force him to return his soul, and he said yes, but if you replace it with Beatrice, who at this point her soul was now in heaven. And he was like, okay, I don't want to touch that, that's a no deal, that's never gonna happen, I'm out of here. But then he spent the rest of his days long after that trying to build a tower into heaven so that he can get that soul of hers back, yeah. I guess he gets bored after a while, he just changed his mind. Number 1, back from the dead and ready to fly. In Nighthawk issue 1, we find John Doe in a coma in the hospital, but then an angel revived him, and on top of that, Nighthawk now had enhanced vision abilities that allow him to see crimes before they're committed. Score, thank you, Angel, this is the best day ever. Only thing is, that angel was actually the devil, Mephistos. And that gift was actually a terrible new feature, because now Nighthawk was attacking criminals before they even did anything, which made him the only criminal in the room, technically. So Daredevil gets involved, they scrap it out, and Nighthawk ends up taking out Daredevil, and the two of them ended up in the underworld. So now it's a mission to break out of hell. and he's carrying Daredevil's body around literally like a backpack, like Weekend at Bernie's style. He's just wrapped around, flopping around on his back. So luckily he revives him with some well-placed hell flames, and in a last attempt to trick them into staying down there with him, Mephisto's made it look like they were actually in heaven. But luckily Daredevil saw through this and they both returned back to Earth. What a trip. Hey guys, how was your weekend? No, we don't want to talk about that.
Number 10, Adam. That's me. Wow. Say what you want about Spider-Man, but he is a hero through and through, and sometimes he needs to remind others how to be just that. In Spider-Man number 7 in 1990, Spider-Man and Ghost Rider are working together to defeat Hobgoblin. A kid named Adam gets grabbed by Hobgoblin, causing Spider-Man to look for a less direct approach. He barrels straight into Hobgoblin on his motorcycle, hitting Adam as well. Spider-Man gets to Adam before he crashes right into a wall. As Ghost Rider gets his hands on the unconscious Hobgoblin and is about to do his penance stare on him, Spider-Man interrupts him, saving Hobgoblin and giving Ghost Rider an earful about what it means to be a hero, sending him walking away in shame. Number 9, Dr. Druid versus Ghost Rider. I think we can all mostly understand the frustration of heartbreak in some form or fashion, but I don't believe most of us turn into a spirit of vengeance when we find out our significant other has an affair. Okay, maybe some people do, but we mostly all practice control and restraint. When Johnny Blaze found out Roxanne had another lover, he transformed into the Ghost Rider to vent his frustrations. Unfortunately, this caught the attention of Dr. Druid, another disciple of the Ancient One like Doctor Strange. Misunderstanding the situation, Dr. Druid and Ghost Rider engaged each other in combat, revealing Johnny's true nature to some onlookers, which totally enraged Johnny even further. Their fight then traveled to a secluded graveyard where eventually Blaze tore out a gravestone and is about to completely take the life of Dr. Druid, as he claims that the more he becomes a spirit of vengeance, the more he loses compassion and the more he hates, with Druid being the one he hates the most right now. Luckily, he stops himself, but he was straight up gonna crush Dr. Druid's head, and that's not cool. Hey y'all, I know there is at least one of you out there enjoying this video who is not subscribed to us at Top 10 Nerd, you little rascal. Slap that subscribe button so I can keep doing this list. Anyways, in at number 8, a whole prison attacked. There are a lot of morally gray heroes who have absolutely no issue with ending the lives of those who commit crime. But ending one's life is still ending one's life, and it's why for some heroes it's a hard line you just do not cross. In Ghost Rider's case, instead of de-lifing some people, they suffer a much worse fate, having their very souls burned with hellfire, leaving them an empty husk. Now, there is a prison called, non-ironically, Fresh Kills Federal Penitentiary on Staten Island, where the most of the most callous criminals are kept. After being forced into the Ghost Rider by the villain Blackheart, Johnny Blaze races towards Fresh Kills Penitentiary, where he bursts inside and fries the inmates with hellfire to burn away their evil. Although Blackheart says it's not enough. Humans always return to their evil ways no matter what penance they do. So Ghost Rider is convinced by his words and proceeds to de-life the inmates instead. I don't know, what do you nerds think about this one? I still think it's bad.
Number 7. Apocalypse in the Past. In Avengers Volume 8, Issue 38, Mephisto goes back in time to get in Apocalypse's ears. He likes to whisper sweet nothings in his ear. Yeah, he approaches him as a centipede, a crow, a snake, I think a flying space shark at one point, and Mephisto convinced Apocalypse that the false gods had mocked him and they needed to perish, which in result sent the Avengers of that era into a heated battle with Apocalypse. This is also the same issue where we see Mephisto stalk a family over years, and then each time he visits, he demands more from them, starting with a finger from each child. He takes fingers now. I mean, we are talking about the devil here. We're not really, this shouldn't be a shock. I mean, yeah, it's kind of a shock. The fingers are a bit messed up. Number 6, the death of Darkoth. In Thor issue 325, titled A Deal with Darkoth, we see Mephisto reach into Darkoth's past and try and find a weak spot in his life. This happens after Mephisto saves his life from an explosion, but the only thing is, saving may not be the best term to use here. See, he actually transported him to hell, and then Mephisto pondered his fate. As if dying wasn't bad enough in an explosion, now you gotta die again, but this time with Mephisto calling the shots. What a nightmare. So he finds his son and makes Darkoth feel horrible for leaving him. So Mephisto offers Desmond Pitt a new life, as long as he goes after Thor. Now, Thor is the god of thunder, so he and Mjolnir had no problem handling this foe, but Mephisto sure didn't make it easy. Number 5. Give the Devil His Due. In Mephisto vs. the Fantastic Four, titled Give the Devil His Due, we find the Fantastic Four as they've all ended up in the underworld. And at this point, he's actually pretty upset with Franklin Richards because he hit him previously with a mental blast. So he's got little Franklin there wearing his pajamas in hell, and Mephisto's got his pointy fingers in his face, poor Franklin. So Susan Storm gets in on the action and actually puts up a pretty good fight, once again getting Reed out of the hole, classic Susan Storm saving Reed Richards. Mephisto then makes a deal with Sue that if she stays in hell, everybody else, bam, you're good to go, see ya. And then poof, they all end up back home, shook by what just happened, and Mephisto gets to enjoy the company of one Sue Storm. Number 4, Party Crasher. Back in the days, you know, when parties were still a normal thing one could have in life, it was always the worst when somebody unexpected just showed up and kind of killed the mood. You know, you're like, oh, is that Brad from work? You're like, nah, I don't want to talk about anything else, let's get out of here. Now I can't vent, Brad's here. Well, something similar happens in Nightcrawler Volume 3, Issue 12. We see every day of the week in the life of Kurt Wagner, and on Thursday night, he gets called down to the library to go over some reports with Scott. And when he walks through the doors, surprise, it's his birthday and all of his friends are waiting there, and there's cake and it's joyous and it's wonderful. Then, like I said, while they're enjoying the festivities, Kurt follows a voice to a visitor in another room. That visitor being Mephisto's. So he teleports them both outside and he tells Nightcrawler that he'll bring his brother back to life if he joins him in the pits of hell. Nightcrawler declines the offer and heads back up to attempt to enjoy the rest of his birthday. What a buzzkill. Happy birthday. Also, your brother's still dead. See ya.
Number 3, throwing his brother off a bridge. Speaking of Danny Ketch, he is actually the brother of Johnny Blaze. In the beginning of Ghost Rider Volume 9, Johnny Blaze was the king of hell. Something that happened in Damnation after Johnny's soul was sent to hell and he convinced Zarathos to help him in a journey to usurp Mephisto's throne. Either way, Johnny Blaze began capturing demons roaming the earth. He tried to recruit the help of his brother, Danny, but Ketch refused and tried to convince Johnny that his position as the king of hell was corrupting his soul. Blaze didn't seem to like that too much, and so he very unceremoniously stripped Ketch of his spirit of vengeance and threw him off the Manhattan Bridge. Nothing like stealing your brother's power and throwing him off a bridge, am I right? Luckily though for Danny, he got saved from drowning by caretaker Sarah. But this is like the 4th time Johnny has just gone way overboard, or over bridge. I'm just gonna stop. Number 2, Johnny hires Cosmic Ghost Rider. In an alternate future when Thanos was attacking the Earth and going on his mad conquest, Frank Castle was killed and sent to hell. While down there, he made a deal with Mephisto to gain the spirit of vengeance and defeat Thanos. The only problem is, when he came back, he was too late and Thanos had taken the lives of everyone on Earth. So he roamed the Earth totally alone and it drove him insane. Castle made a deal with Galactus to gain the power cosmic in exchange for the Earth. So now, it's Frank Castle with the spirit of vengeance and the power cosmic. Yes, it is as cool as it sounds, but him going bonkers has made things much more interesting. Unfortunately, he actually goes on to sort of join Thanos in his quest. A lot of stuff happens with the baby and adult Thanos, but basically, in Earth 616, Johnny Blaze is the king of hell, forces this Cosmic Ghost Rider to attack the Avengers in Avengers Volume 8, number 24, and forces Robbie Reyes into a race for Robbie's power, threatening the life of Robbie's brother Gabe. So yeah, this is Johnny being a jerk again, hiring an insanely powerful Cosmic Ghost Rider to de-life the Avengers. Luckily, it doesn't turn out that way. And in at number 1 is Cosmic Ghost Rider. But the question is, why would Johnny Blaze make Cosmic Ghost Rider go after the Avengers? And what's so wrong with that? Well, you see, Cosmic Ghost Rider in his quest against Thanos actually joined up with Thanos, like I said before. And then he went back in time to try and raise a baby Thanos to be a better Mad Titan, as in, like, less death obsessed. This brought him into direct conflict with an alternate Guardians of the Galaxy led by Cable. Now when the fight finally starts, Cosmic Ghost Rider is trying to shield baby Thanos from the violence, so he hands the baby over to Uatu the Watcher and starts going to town on these Guardians. The only problem is Cable keeps using his time traveling abilities to bring back more and more heroes to take on this Cosmic Ghost Rider. By my counting, the insane Frank Castle Cosmic Ghost Rider took the lives of about 41 21 different time-displaced superpowered beings. And when he was finally overwhelmed, he had failed completely because he was saved by the baby Thanos, who took out the remaining heroes. And then a Punisher-dressed Thanos from the future shows up calling Frank dad. I don't know, it's insane. Just go read it.
Number 10, A Date with the Devil. In New Mutants Volume 3, Issue 30, we find Mephisto taking a pretty strange deal. I mean, compared to his normal read the fine print soul collecting type of deal, that is. This time around, a team of X-Men accidentally enter the home of Mephisto, the underworld, literally hell. So he offered to let them go about their super business and leave hell on one condition. That condition being that he gets a date night with Amara Aquila. So the team encourages her to say no, but she seals the deal. Mephisto says, hey, I'll call you, and then whoosh, they're all gone. Just like that, the team is free. So the team rescued Blink, and then Amara prepared for her date. Issue 37, titled A Date with the Devil, we see Magma double checking that she looks good for her date night coming up. Making sure the curls look good, eyeliner's great, we're looking good, let's do it. And just like prom night, her man arrives at the door with flowers. What a gentleman. So they dine, of course, in the third circle of hell, overlooking a lake of lava with volcanoes going off. It's quite the spectacle. I mean, Niagara Falls, hell, you know, both are pretty romantic. And of course, they had an amazing pit band to set the mood. She returns back to normal life and admits that she had a pretty decent time once he stopped trying so hard. See, usually when a friend goes on a date, you know, it's exciting to see how it went. Now, imagine if your roommate went on a date with the devil. Oh my God. The amount of tea I would make them spill, we'd never sleep. We'd talk all night. I'd also be worried sick. I'd be like, hey, how was your night? He was the devil, so are you good? Is your soul good? Awesome. As far as force deals go, this one wasn't too bad. But there's plenty more on this list. And before we get to number 9, guys, if you could go ahead and give this video a thumbs up, because it really helps out our studio quite a bit. Thank you so much for watching. Now back to this crazy list. Number 9, closing time. If you've worked at a bar, you know it's the worst when people stay right until the very end, right until closing time. Or even worse, they'll show up minutes before you're about to get out of there. Like 3 minutes before last call, someone will walk in, grab a drink, and then they'll just chill and unwind the entire night, which is fine, but sometimes you're like, hey man, I've been here for 10 hours, I gotta go home. Now imagine if one of those late night visits was from Mephisto. See, in Journey into Mystery issue 627, we see another hobby of the devil's besides taking souls that bartenders will tell stories of. What he would do is show up every night to a random bar or a pub, and then he tells a story. He vents, he lets things off his chest. And if you listen and survive, he'll give you a really nice tip. And I'm talking like a really nice tip. You don't have to work anymore in a bar after that point. But if you slip up, things can go pretty south pretty fast. Now this amuses Mephisto. He enjoys playing along and chatting it up with the poor soul who offered to pick up that shift that night. I wonder if I'm gonna see him one night, hopefully. Fingers crossed. Actually, no, let's not see him. Let's not do that. Number 8. What happens in Vegas? Doctor Strange Damnation is a 4-parter that puts Mephisto and Doctor Strange in the most epic game of blackjack. Yeah, you thought Casino Royale had like the high stakes? No devil involved, no way, just Daniel Craig. So following the destruction of Las Vegas after Hydra's short-lived empire, Doctor Strange tried putting the city back to normal using his magic. But in doing so, it resulted in this hotel emerging from the ground, and that hotel just happened to be Hotel Inferno. And of course, inside that hotel is Mephisto. Yeah, it turns out when the city went down, Mephisto claimed all of their souls in hell. So in order to come to an agreement to save the city and the people inhabiting it, a game of brimstone blackjack was in order. I mean, being forced on a date is one thing, but a game of blackjack with the devil? I mean, what a better way to start an adventure.
Number 7, Beat Up Angel. So back in the Avengers Volume 1, issue number 214, Johnny Blaze and the Avengers come into conflict. Johnny was hanging out on some rocks in New Mexico, brooding and hating on the world for everyone who abandons him, when all of a sudden, Warren Worthington III comes zooming down the road in a Ferrari with a girl in the passenger seat. Johnny seems to get really jealous and decides to scare the hell out of the couple, causing Warren to crash the car. Johnny then challenges Warren to a race. Now to be fair, Warren gets a good punch in on Johnny, but that just makes the Ghost Rider use his hellfire to burn Warren's soul and put him into a coma. Kind of really overdoing it there, Ghosty. Thor, Tigra, Iron Man, and Captain America head to the area of the incident to take on the Ghost Rider, only for him to give them much more of a fight than they probably expected. Number 6, Killing STARSEED. There was a time in the 70s when Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider joined up with the team team known as the Legion of Monsters. While not entirely bad, some of the characters here were monsters, and they did indeed give in to their monster tendencies. One such moment would come in Marvel Premiere number 28 in 1975, when a seemingly peaceful alien from a highly advanced race came and plopped a mountain down in California. It caused a bunch of earthquakes, which attracted the Monster Legion, and thanks to Morbius and Werewolf by Night, who gave in to their hunger, they attacked the alien. Now, admittedly, the Ghost Rider tried to intervene, but they still, as a group, caused the passing of STARSEED, and he even helped them to get back their non-monstrous forms. So it was kind of rude. Number 5. Robbie and Ellie. So this one's a little murky. Robbie Reyes is the current Ghost Rider, and he's great. He's super interesting. His car is hella cool. I just find him to be a smidge bit more evil than his other counterparts, and that's because when Robbie Reyes becomes Ghost Rider, he is not a spirit of vengeance. Robbie is instead possessed by a ghost of a guy named Eli. Now, it is revealed in all new Ghost Rider number 8 in 2014 that Eli was not a spirit of vengeance like Johnny Blaze's Zarathos, but instead Eli is Robbie's uncle and a satanic serial de-lifer who took the lives of and dismembered at least 37 people in rituals before he was finally taken out by the police in 1999. And he lived in the house that the Reyes brothers, Gabe and Robbie, took to living in. So while Robbie himself isn't necessarily a bad dude, not entirely, the alter ego he now lives with is indeed quite evil, and they constantly have to do mental battle for Robbie to stay in control and not completely give in to Eli's bloodlust. That's a no for me. I don't know. Number 4. Power Obsessed. Ghost Rider Danny Ketch was an interesting one for sure. His spirit of vengeance happened to actually be an ancestor of both him and Johnny Blaze named Noble Kale, who became a spirit of vengeance. In Danny Ketch Ghost Rider number 2, Danny gets the spirit exorcised from him, but instead of doing him good, he went a little bonkers, craving the spirit's power like some kind of addiction. He tried to set himself on fire in Times Square to get the power back. That's how crazy he went. He ended up hanging out in bars, fighting other people just for fun. Yeah, sounds like a blast. But in a turn of events, he was fed doses of the Ghost Rider power, feeding his addiction. Then he began hunting down the other Ghost Riders and Verminous Rex, taking him down and absorbing a whole bunch of Ghost Rider souls and quote-unquote overdosing on the power. The Archangel Zadkiel intervened and saved him, but made Danny one of his knights, hunting down other spirits of vengeance, which led him after Johnny Blaze and saw Danny convince a young man, Lucas Collier, to end his own life. So yeah, he's kind of absolutely horrible.
Number 3. Using James Mandarin. Doctor Strange Volume 2 Issue 15 titled Where There's Smoke. We see Mephisto use James Mandarin as a pawn against Doctor Strange. It's brutal. So the issue kicks off with Doctor Strange saving a woman from a fire, and when he returns home he meets up with Clea, but before they can even catch up, a man named James Mandarin comes to the door. But he has a knife in his hand and he claims to know who and what Doctor Strange truly is. But Doctor Strange plays it cool, of course. James does not play it cool. See, he wants to be Strange's disciple, so he slashes at his own throat to make Doctor Strange use his powers and save him. What a power play. Also, you're so insane, but power play indeed. So Strange heals him up, of course, and he proudly puts it together that no normal doctor could have patched him up that fast. And then out pops the devil to make things just that much more exciting. So now the next issue is Strange saving his love from the afterlife. So while Strange waits for the help of Wong to get him out of there, he has to then face off against all sorts of illusions and deceptions unleashed by the devil. They're trying to change him into one of the Hell Lord's minions. So Wanda Maximoff is playing a role in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So I feel like WandaVision will introduce Mephisto, and then in his movie he'll have to go in and finish off the Unholy Terrors with Wanda's help. Number 2, Fragments of Greater Darkness. So Avengers West Coast Volume 2 Issue 52, we find out the truth behind Scarlet Witch's children, Billy and Tommy. Again, this is another WandaVision theory that I think is happening. Listen up, here we go. So like I said earlier, these 5 pieces of Pandemonium's soul were actually Mephisto's. So Mephisto tricked Pandemonium and then gathered beings possessing the appropriate fragments. 2 of those 5 fragments just happened to be children of Scarlet Witch and Vision. So when Pandemonium arrived, he took the kids, which in turn gave Mephisto full strength, and then this of course left Scarlet Witch having a breakdown. Again, it's been hinted at that Agnes in WandaVision is actually Agatha Harkness, which would make sense. She's a witch, and then in episode 6, we saw everybody in their comic accurate look, and she was of course rocking the witch outfit. Coincidence? I think not. And finally, number 1, One More Day. We finish off with this 4-parter, the One More Day Spider-Man storyline. It began in 2007 in Amazing Spider-Man issue 544, and instead of Pete dealing with the usual thugs or some enhanced science villain with a tail, we see Spider-Man make a deal with the devil. So after Spider-Man revealed his identity in the Civil War storyline, people of course were after him now. So when a bullet strikes Aunt May instead of Peter, he of course feels like he's the one to blame. Absolutely, you took your mask off, that's what happens. Even the opening of the story, it shows Aunt May in a hospital bed with Peter at her side, talking about how she was perfectly fine just a mere days ago. It's very sad. And Mephisto has entered the chat once again. He offers Peter a deal while Aunt May is dying. So basically what happens is that the world will forget about Peter's identity and Aunt May will live. But the whole Mephisto magic is that MJ and Peter never got married. That's just gonna go away. So it's a lose-lose, and you're just trying to be a superhero. So they hug one final time, and MJ explains that their love was always meant to be, and that whatever Mephisto does is unstoppable. And then poof, the deal is sealed. The next day, Peter wakes up, all is fine and normal in his casual life. All that backstory was just wiped out in the turn of a page. Thanks to Mephisto, because your deals are just great.
Number 10. He gives up fighting the Hulk to let him sick the Illuminati. One of the Hulk's most awesome and powerful moments came in the World War Hulk story, when the Incredible Hulk gathered up his warband on Sakaar and headed to Earth for some much desired revenge on the Illuminati. The Illuminati had tricked Hulk, banished him into space, left him stranded on a world where he was forced to become a gladiator and work his way to become king, and then the ship they sent him there on self-destructed and caused the passing of tons of people he cared about. So yes, the Illuminati deserved what was coming to them, but they still tried to put up a fight. When Hulk arrived on Earth, more mad than he has ever been, there were only 2 people who ever had a chance of bringing him down. The first was the incredibly powerful Sentry, and the second was Ghost Rider. When Ghost Rider showed up and started fighting, the Hulk decided to try and squash him like a bug, quote unquote. Only problem was, now that he had knocked out Johnny Blaze, Zarathos was allowed to take a bit more control, and he attacked back with so much hellfire the two got to an almost stalemate. The not so bad thing that we're talking about though is when Zarathos, who only punishes the guilty, sees that Hulk is truly innocent in this situation. So he betrays the Illuminati and basically allows the Hulk to go ahead with his destruction. Honestly, kind of awesome. I wasn't even upset. Let's find some better examples. But before I do that, do you like anime as well as comics? Well, luckily for you, now we have a full channel completely dedicated to nerdy videos about specifically anime and manga. Go check out Amazing Top 10 Anime. Let's just move on. Number 9. Johnny Blaze and Danny Ketch. Yet again, I can't really say I blame Johnny Blaze all too much for this one, but still. When Danny Ketch became a new Ghost Rider after Johnny had imprisoned Zarathos in an amulet, Johnny was more than a little suspicious. Johnny Blaze traveled from the west coast to confront this new Ghost Rider, thinking that Zarathos had returned somehow. Blaze hunted down Danny Ketch Ghost Rider and tried to take his life multiple times while Ghost Rider kept attempting to escape Blaze and bring the villain Blackout, who was dispatching multiple people, to justice. Johnny kept this up until he finally watched Ghost Rider save a child in Central Park. This finally made him become less suspicious of Ghost Rider, and he stopped trying to take him out repeatedly. He instead decided to observe Daniel to make sure that he wasn't Zarathos, and he taught Daniel how to fight and protect himself when he wasn't transformed into Ghost Rider. So ultimately he made up for it, but still a little impulsive with the old de-lifing there, Johnny. I want to tone that down. Number 8. Alejandra Jones, Hellfire Exploded a Country. Alright, buckle up because this one involves Adam. Not me, like the biblical Adam. In Marvel Comics, Adam has devoted himself to one day eradicating sin from mankind, at any cost, even human souls. To that end, Adam took in orphan children and trained them within a Nicaraguan temple to make them perfect as hosts of the Ghost Rider. Now, with the Fear Itself event and the arrival of the Serpent, Adam decided this was a sign to make his move and offered to free Johnny Blaze from the Ghost Rider. Adam awakened the Seeker and had him pick the new Ghost Rider among those students that he was training. Alejandra Jones was the one chosen and was immediately sent to battle Scotty, who was one of the Serpent's avatars. Now when she came back, Adam demanded that she destroy the sin in the other orphans, which would leave them as husks. She obviously refused, but in return, Adam enslaved her. Now Johnny Blaze, realizing he made a boo-boo, journeyed to Nicaragua to stop them, but Adam turned Alejandra's power into a bomb that went off, taking away the sin from the Nicaraguans, turning them into mindless emotional shells of the individuals they once were. The only ones unaffected by this blast were Johnny and the Seeker. Basically, Alejandra was used to destroy the whole country of Nicaragua.
Number 7. Master Pandemonium. Martin Preston made his comic book appearance in West Coast Avengers Volume 2, Issue 4. He was a student at Juilliard and a big-time Hollywood star. I mean, the guy was killing it. He had money, fame, he was in his 50s, but the guy looked like he was early 40s. Just killing it, just killing the game. Then he thought it would be a cool idea to drink and drive. Not a cool idea, never do that. So of course, after the crash, he was approached by Mephisto, and Mephisto had repaired his arm by calling forward a demon. Imagine if Bucky had his arm replaced by a demon. God, it would be a mess. Leaving a 5-point shaped hole in his chest, Mephisto had lied to Martin and said that it's because he had separated his soul into 5 different places among Earth's dimension. That was in fact a lie. In actuality, Mephisto had replaced his other limbs with demons as well. So now he's a walking, talking Trojan horse for the devil. Number 6. Johnny Blaze. Marvel Spotlight issue 5, we see a legend being born. The Ghost Rider. See, Johnny Blaze was a stunt performer, and when his stepfather, Crash Simpson, got cancer, Johnny opted to make a deal with Mephisto to save him. And then when Crash tried to return to the stunt life, he crashed. So now Johnny's upset and he has a few choice words for the devil. So Crash still ended up passing away after all, just not from cancer. Kind of not a great deal. So when Mephisto returned to collect his soul, because he thinks that's a fair deal, Roxanne intervened and used the spell of banishment from one of Johnny's books. Before Mephisto got cast away, he grafted the essence of the demon Zarathos to Johnny's body, thus creating the Ghost Rider. Imagine if Roxanne hadn't showed up, he would have just tricked another poor person into trading souls for some lousy deal. Careful what you wish for, folks. Number 5, Silver Surfer. When Mephisto first came into Marvel Comics, many thought it was during the events of Ghost Rider, like I just mentioned. He actually tried taking Norrin Radd's soul before in Silver Surfer issue 3. The Power and the Prize. The story begins with the Silver Surfer being tracked down by Mephisto because he's drawn to his power and nobility. What a perfect soul to take. The guy's great. He sees him as an obstacle, of course, because he's the Silver Surfer and he's amazing. So Mephisto captures Norrin Radd's love to use as bait, but the Silver Surfer beat him down. He's one of the few Marvel heroes that actually had defeated Mephisto. So honestly, if the devil ends up showing up in WandaVision at some point, I wouldn't be surprised if the Silver Surfer is next up shortly after. I think we're gonna go more cosmic, especially with Thor 4. Definitely with Thor 4. Number 4, Cynthia Von Doom. The mother of Victor Von Doom. She was known, of course, to dabble in the dark arts. She often communicated with demons and used spells. She was born in Latveria into a Romani clan, and her people were constantly facing persecution at the hands of the Baron and his men. So she turned to Mephisto to make a deal, promising her soul in exchange to punish them. So he gave her powers to take care of them, but the only thing was that same power would also take care of the children that were there as well. So he gave her the power, but just not the control. So she couldn't live with herself after what she had done to the children, so she made her husband promise that her son would never follow her footsteps. And then after that, her soul moved to her forever home, which was hell.
Number 3, Snap. Remember that time Green Goblin took Gwen Stacy to the George Washington Bridge? You know, the whole spine snap thing? Well, Ghost Rider, Robbie Reyes, unknowingly sort of relives that moment. Robbie's classmate and bully, Guero, had been taking pills created by cartel leader Dr. Zabo. He created a gang with his friends called the Blue Crew. When Eli, on the pill, attacks Robbie, the Ghost Rider is actually being controlled by the spirit of his uncle, Eli, who trips Guero, making him fall off a bridge. Now Robbie takes back control and attempts to save Guero using his chains. He pulls Guero up with like a powerful yank, and Guero flies back up and lands on a metal beam back first, breaking his spine and folding him in half the wrong way. Number 2, Michael Battolino. As a boy, Michael suffered a terrible tragedy. One day, Michael's father was attacked by Johnny Blaze's Ghost Rider, who was being controlled by an evil entity at the time. But Battolino Sr. went mad after the attack, and he de-lifed his wife, daughter, and himself, leaving little Michael all alone. Following that tragedy, Michael grew up obsessed with getting revenge on the Ghost Rider for what he did to his family. As an adult, Battolino struck a deal with Mephisto to become a Ghost Rider-like creature known as Vengeance, who had to be defeated. But I don't know, it feels a little hollow, as he was definitely wronged by the Ghost Rider, and I kinda take his side here. I don't know. What do you think? And in at number 1 is Zarathos. As commenter Rodney Lindsay made note of pointing out in part 1, the greatest sin Johnny Blaze, the Ghost Rider, ever made was becoming the Ghost Rider at all, by making a deal with Mephisto. Johnny became bound to Zarathos, the spirit of vengeance, after making making a deal with the demon Mephisto to spare the life of his surrogate father, Crash Simpson. While this was an act to try and help another, it ultimately was a ruse as Crash passed on anyways, and now, with the power to control Hellfire and to inflict pain on those he deemed evil, Johnny would go off trying his best to be a hero but treading a much more darker path, taking lives of sinners and leaving some as empty husks of their former selves, allowing him to make the bad decisions he has made in both parts of this list so far.